Hello Stampers, welcome to the craft room and another episode of Card Play. Today I want to show you how to use your transparencies to create a multi-layered shaker card. This might be hard to see in the camera, but there's all kinds of glitter and snow inside of this card, so let's go ahead and get started. You're going to need 2 pieces of window sheet or transparency, and each of these pieces is 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And I also cut a piece of Whisper White cardstock 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And let's start with the cardstock piece first. We're going to take a sticky note, and we're just going to create a mask with the sticky note. And I'm just going to create a little bit of a bump there, since this is going to act as my ground. And you want to place that, I don't know, about 2/3 of the way down your piece of Whisper White cardstock. Then we're going to take some Bashful Blue ink and a sponge, and we're going to sponge above the sticky note. And we're creating the sky for our background for our shaker card. And I like to get the ink just a little bit darker right along the horizon line here. And that looks pretty good. We're just going to remove that first mask. And remember, you now have this other piece of mask that came from the cut that you had made originally. And we're just going to take that and we're going to use that to create a little second line here. And without re-inking our sponge, we're just going to lightly sponge that area, and that just creates another little horizon line, just to give us kind of 3 little looks there. The next thing we're going to do is take one piece of our transparency, and if you want now, you can put that on top of your background. That way you can see where you're going to be stamping. And I'm going to use this tree from the Punch Pals stamp set and also some Staz-On ink. And I'm not going to ink up this entire stamp. I'm just going to ink up the tree and a little bit of the trunk. And then we're going to stamp one tree right about here and pull that up, and then I'm going to ink it up again and stamp him again. Again, not inking up that entire trunk, just a portion of it. There you go. And if you wanted to add more trees, that's up to you. I'm just going to have these 2. The next thing we're going to do, still on this layer of transparency, is to take the Very Merry stamp from the Short and Sweet stamp set, and we're going to stamp it along the bottom, again using our black Staz-On. There we go. And the next thing we're going to do is to take our next layer of transparency. So right now we've got the Whisper White, our first layer of transparency. Now what we're going to do is to take our other piece of transparency, and we're also going to take this snowflake stamp, also from the Punch Pals stamp set, and we're just going to stamp some snowflakes toward the top of this piece of transparency. Why we're doing it on this piece is to try to start to create some depth and interest with our multiple layers when we end up putting them all together. So that's enough snowflakes, so we're going to set that layer aside. The next thing we're going to start to do is do some painting on our transparency. To do this, we're just going to take that transparency and we're going to turn it over, because we want to be painting on the back of our transparency. I'm using acrylic paints. You can use any type you want. You can use cheap craft paints. You can use your shimmer paint. And I'm just going to use some gold, and I'm going to come in and paint the stars at the top. You can also always check your painting by turning your transparency over and seeing how you're doing, and then turning it back over. And now that I've painted the stars, I'm just going to come in here and start to paint some of these ornaments that are on the tree. And I'm going to create a couple different colored ornaments, so some red ornaments and gold ornaments and maybe even a purple ornament on my tree. And finally, I'm just going to paint the trunks of my tree, and I'm using kind of a light brown color. This is just a very simple line of paint to create those trunks. And then we've got to do the hardest part, at least for me, which is to be patient and let that dry. Okay, now that that is dry, we can go ahead and paint our trees. I'm going to paint them a sparkly green color. And once you're finished with the painting, you just want to go ahead and set this aside to dry. So now that our paint is completely dry, we're going to take all three of our layers, our background layer, our tree layer, and our snowflake layer, and we're going to start to layer them together. The snowflakes are going to be the layer right on top of our background, and then we're going to take our trees and put those right on top of our snowflakes. And again, you'll see that there's some overlap here between a snowflake and my tree. It shouldn't matter because we're going to end up having this be a little bit above. If for some reason though you don't like that, you actually can use some alcohol on a Q-tip to remove that snowflake. So I've just put a little bit of alcohol on this Q-tip and I'm just literally erasing that snowflake with my Q-tip. So now let's go ahead and layer things up again. So our snowflakes first, and then our trees on top of that. There you go. Now I'm just going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew 3 edges. And I'm going to sew this side, the bottom, and this side. I'm going to leave the top unsewn for now so that we have something, an opening to put in our glitter. And I'm actually going to use a stitch that's really close together, so a pretty small stitch. That way glitter can't get through the stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this up with some metallic thread and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and stitched up 3 sides here and I'm just going to go ahead and cut these excess threads. And the next thing we're going to do is start to add some of our glitter. And I'm going to use 2 different kinds. I'm going to use some dazzling diamonds for one of my layers. And I'm going to use, and I'm sorry to say I don't even know what this is called, but you can usually find it in craft stores around Christmas time. It's kind of a larger chunkier glitter. I'm just going to take a little spoon and grab some of this glitter. And then what you want to do, and hopefully you can see this, you've got 3 layers here now. You've got your paper backing, and then you've got one transparency layer and another transparency layer. And so I'm going to take the bigger glitter and put it in the farthest back against the background. So just spoon some of that. Whoops. So we're just going to spoon some of that gently in there. And you don't need a lot. A little goes a long way. And you can start to see that in there. And now I'm just going to take a little spoon of some dazzling diamonds. And the dazzling diamonds I'm going to add in this layer in between the 2 transparencies. So you can stick a finger in there to kind of keep it open. Again, a little goes a long way. You don't need a lot. And we're just going to pour some dazzling diamonds in there. And I actually also like to add a little bit more of this thicker glitter in with the dazzling diamonds. It helps break the dazzling diamonds up. So once you're satisfied with the amount of glitter, and again you can shake that a little bit and start to see if you feel like it's too much, you can remove some. That's all up to you. The last thing we're going to do is just sew this last end, this opening, closed using the exact same stitches, exact same thread. I'll be right back. Okay, and once again I'm going to cut off those excess threads. If you want to pull them through to the back, you can do that as well. I'm just going to snip them off. Just so cute, it just makes me want to play. You could, in fact, actually attach some grommets here and actually just make this a cute little ornament if you wanted. I like to place it on a card. I think it makes an adorable card. So I'm just going to grab a card base. And I'm just using Whisper white cardstock, and this piece is 5.5 by 8.5, and I scored it and folded it in half. And then I'm just going to use dimensionals to pop that up right in the center of that card. And we're just going to place that down in the center. And there you have it, a really fun shaker card using your stamping and some window sheets or transparencies. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Card Play, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon here in the craft room.